Gold panning is a pretty easy process, just needs a little practice. You can practice at home using just some sand and a gold pan. In this case, I'm using some sand out of our family vacation pot, sand from various beaches. I would not recommend doing this unless you have explicit permission from your wife before you do it. This sand is good though because it does have some dark, heavy sand in it, which is generally associated with gold, called black sand. And so when panning, it's good to have some of that in there because you usually end up keeping that along with your little flecks or pieces of gold. So once you have your sand, you'll need something to resemble gold. In this case, we're just going to use some lead pieces that are out of a pellet gun, some lead pellets. Cutting it up a couple times. This piece I'm going to cut up 4 times, so we'll have 4 little pieces of lead to try to keep. And then these will be what we'll put in the sand. And if you keep these when you're done, then it means that you're able to keep most likely any gold when you're actually doing it. You can shape them a little bit, try to get them more to resemble what a natural piece of gold may be. I'm also going to add in some BBs. These are steel BBs, so they're very hard. You probably won't be able to smash them, so they will stay round, which means that they'll be harder to keep in the pan because they'll attempt to roll out. So if you can keep the BBs in, even better. And the last thing we're going to put in here to make this really authentic is some dirt. This dirt just came out of our garden, so you never know. You may want to just go dig a little out in your yard. You might have gold sitting in your front yard. Stir it all up, and you just need some water. You can do that in a Tupperware or a large pot, kiddie pool. First thing you need to do is you just need to sink whatever's in there to the bottom. Anything that's heavy should sink. So just by getting it wet and shaking it, your lead pieces, your BBs, or preferably gold, will be sitting down at the bottom. As soon as that happens, then you can start to wash off the material that's on top. And this video is pretty long, so you can jump to the end of it if you just want to see if we're able to keep them. There are a number of ways to pan. Everyone kind of has their own technique. The main points are just to not slosh out your gold. So back and forth motions on the pan are usually the safest. And if there's any clumps of clay, break them up with your hands. Pick out any really large rocks that you see. If you pan too fast, you run the risk of washing out some of your gold. You can get a little too aggressive. If you go too slow, you can't really run a risk of losing anything, but you can take a lot more time than's needed. In this video, we're taking a lot more time than's needed just to show the really slow process to make sure that you do it and keep everything. The speed of the video has been sped up just a little bit. It was actually about 8 minutes to pan this from start to finish, and cut it down to, I believe, about 5 minutes by speeding up the playback on the video. They just keep washing with the back and forth, similar to a wave that will wash in and wash out the lighter material. Keeping the riffles of the pan, assuming your pan has them, the little grooves, keep them down towards the water so that anything that does go through them will get stuck if it's heavy. So anything down on the bottom, such as your pieces of lead that you're practicing with. So we'll change out the water now, not that you need to, just makes it a little easier to see what you're doing. And continue panning. This is a small pan. You can get pans of different sizes. The small pan's just a little easier to work with. Kids probably will like using the small pans. So if you find out that you're taking too long and you want to speed it up, all you really need to do is increase the angle that you're holding the pan. So when those waves come in and out, it'll be steeper and more of the light material will wash back out. If you go too steep, you can wash out too much too fast. So practice will teach where you're comfortable with and what your technique is, which again is why this is a good thing to be practicing at home. So as I'm doing this, I'm gradually increasing that angle steeper and steeper. You can see that it is starting to wash off more and more material quicker. As you're washing, if you want to stop every so often and just consolidate everything back to the bottom of the pan, that way in case your washing has worked any of the gold up towards the edge of the pan, just by settling everything back down into the bottom of the pan will bring it all back. Just helps make sure that none of it gets out. So now slow the video back down to normal speed. So there's 1, 2, 3, and our 4th piece of lead. So we got all 4 pieces of lead and there's all 4 BBs. So if this was a small little flecks of gold, you'd need to keep going most likely because that's too much sand in there to really separate them. You'd most likely have more black sand at this point anyway instead of the lighter sand. But one way you can separate the final little bit of black sand from the actual gold is when you have maybe about that much left in the pan and just a little bit of water. If you go into a slow circular motion, it will usually pull the black sand just really lightly away from the gold, leaving the gold in a line that you could then suck up with a little suction bottle. Or if nothing else, you could at least just see what you have if there's anything. So that's it. It's pretty simple. Just practice a little bit and then you're ready to tackle the great outdoors.